Making mistakes as a dad is a fact of life. That doesn't mean you have to beat yourself up over it. I've made many of the typical mistakes a dad can make, but between each mistake, I realized there's a learning opportunity to be had. The biggest mistake a dad can make is just simply thinking you're gonna be perfect, because newsflash, you can't be. And the real failure is when you stop trying to improve. I'm actually this year gonna be a dad for 10 years. My kids are turning 10 and 8. And looking back, the biggest mistake that I made was not actually the mistake itself. It was actually something completely different around the mistake, which I didn't even realize till recently. Several years ago, I ended up getting a divorce. And I was so hard on myself. I mean, I was a child of divorce. I grew up experiencing what a divorce household was like. And here I am, I'm getting divorced. I failed. My kids' lives, they're over, right? Their lives are gonna be horrible now. And all the negative thought processes. And this lasted for quite some time. I'm not a big believer in divorce, I don't condone divorce, but sometimes throughout a divorce, if you're a dad and you're present, your quality time actually increases, although your quantity of time goes down. The quality goes up, the quantity goes down. And I have found that, especially for me and my two kids, the quality of time has gone up. I've been able to do more stuff with them, which I never did before, which I probably took for granted some of the time I had. But the biggest mistake was not the divorce itself, it was the realization that the headspace around it, that I was putting myself through the ringer for so long. I was so hard on myself for so long that negative headspeak really affected me for quite some time with my identity and with various things. So sometimes it's not specifically the act itself that's the mistake. It's many times the headspace or the cognitive behavioral therapy, right? The thought processes behind the mistake itself, that's the actual mistake. So when I think of my oldest daughter turning 10 this year, and I think of the 10-ish years that I've been a dad, there are really 4 specific mistakes, 4 specific things that stick out that I wish there was some guy on a YouTube video that I could have watched and I potentially may have not made that mistake. I've been more prepared. Now the first one was just not being prepared for the 4th trimester. So there's a lot of information now about this magical 4th trimester for a guy. It's a cool concept because I've been there myself throughout pregnancy, twice technically, and it's all about the 1st trimester, 2nd trimester, 3rd trimester, the mom's journey, how's the baby doing? It's going from a seed to a grape to a eventually to, I don't know how big they got, I forget. Watermelon, and that might be too big, right? Grapefruit. But for men, especially new fathers, which is the point of this video, there's something called the 4th trimester. You go to the hospital, typically, you have your baby, and your world will change. Your world will completely turn a 180, and everything you know about reality will turn upside down on its head, right? And what does that mean? It's your routine. There's no more routine, right? You're now working off of newborn time, which is all over the place, the sleep deprivation. I still, from 10 years ago, have the golf ball between my eyes. From when you wake up 3 or 4 times throughout the night and then you can't sleep. Think about it. Sleep deprivation is how you torture people. So, the routine's gone. Sleep deprivation, relationship as co-parents, but also the marriage relationship or the relationship with your partner, it takes a toll because the first 3 months to me, it's like boot camp, right? I always say it's like BUDS, which is the Navy SEALs boot camp, but ultimately it's like going to boot camp and you just have to come out on the other side alive. Your relationship may not be the best during those 3 months. There might be some things said which are said out of sleep deprivation and frustration when it's not really for you to take personal. Maybe date night goes by the wayside just because for the first 3 months, oh my God, potentially it's your first child. What do we do with it? How do we keep it alive? How do we keep, how do we feed it? And everything that happens, all the crying and the lack of sleeping or whatever it is, there's a lot of stress. So the 4th trimester is really a shock for guys. It was a shock for me, but I wasn't prepared. No real talk about the 4th trimester, so there was no preparation except for, hey, your kid's here, this is what you do. And then more so, more of it gets put onto the mom as it is, which we'll talk about in some of the future mistakes we're gonna get into shortly. But that's something that without a doubt, just prepare guys for the 4th trimester. What does that really mean? It just means once you have your baby, there's so many things that happen, especially in the first 3 months, you really have to be prepared. Prepared for lack of sleep, prepared for, the relationship, maybe your closeness kind of gets tested for a little bit and it's fine, it makes sense. You just have to get out after the 3 months alive together with a healthy baby and just kind of like still there doing the thing. But just understand, once that baby comes, everything's gonna change and it's okay, it makes sense. So be prepared for it. Now the second thing, which is something for me that I wish that I knew, it's definitely a mistake I made. Before we get into it, guys, make sure you go in the description, click the link, and get our free checklist for the most common things that new dads wish they knew. I can tell you that these things that we created for you guys, which is free, make sure you go in the description, click the link, download it because it's free. I wish I knew them. I wish some of my friends and other dads that I know, they wish that they knew them. So make sure you go in the description, click the link, and download our free checklist of all the typical things that new dads wish they knew before they got into the whole dad game. The second mistake I made was really deferring to the mom a lot of the caretaking activities. So I mean, I could tell you from experience that I'm a girl dad, wanted the boy, but I ended up getting the girl. And then I got a second girl. So I have two girls. I'm a girl dad. I love it. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. But I will tell you specifically the biggest mistake I made, letting the caretaking activities initially be like offloaded to the mom. Now somewhere I felt some place I saw that, dads are responsible for providing financially and just being there physically, keeping the house safe. But does it say anywhere, in some kind of, Bible or any type of old writings that anyone believes in that dads cannot caretake for little girls, even let alone little boys? No. This is something that I deferred, and I wish, huge mistake, I wish I didn't do that. Turns out eventually I was like, you know what, Andrew? It's time you say man up, but it's time you start doing the thing with the little girls, specifically doing their hair, picking out their clothes, doing more of the caretaking activities, which seems more maternal, but it's not maternal. It's called being a caretaker, being a parent. So that's one specific thing for sure that I'll always regret. I'm not gonna tell you with these big hands that it's easy for me when they were little to do the little bows, and maybe their mom did a better job than I did at the time. But it's just one of those things that it's a really enjoyable experience. It definitely brings you closer to your kids. It builds that bond, it builds the presence, builds the relationship. But I definitely deferred it a little bit too long. But without a doubt, for new dads or dads, repeat dads, I would almost challenge you, just make sure you don't do what I did and make sure you do some of the caretaking activities. Because sometimes, you kind of offload this to mom, you think it's more maternal, but it's not. It's super enjoyable. And as you get better at it, it builds that relationship with my kids and they actually enjoy me doing their hair. I'm not gonna tell you when I first started doing their hair, I was the best at it. The brushing, I had to get the right brush. I think I had to get a wet brush, then a dry brush. There's a lot that goes into doing girls' hair. But eventually I got very good at it and they actually enjoy when I do it. But I wish I would have started earlier. Now looking back, the third thing that I made a mistake on, which I corrected pretty quick, but it's something I should have known out of the gate and probably done a better job, is letting my kids spread their wings and doing things that they loved more so. And I say that because there's a lot of dads out there that are, I call them dadderpreneurs, right? Dad entrepreneurs or business owners, or they work a lot or whatever it is. And as my kids were progressing and getting older, there were things that I had to do on the weekends, especially a divorced dad or a solo dad at the time, and I had to do certain things for work. So instead of doing certain things for them at the time, I had to do my things for work, where in my head I was like, I have to provide financially, there's all this pressure, new solo dad or divorced dad. And there were things that I could have done for them, whether it was sports, entertainment, activities, whatever it was, and we didn't. So I was able to do my thing and work, and then eventually we got to their stuff. And I think that was a mistake. I think it was a mistake because I could have been prepared and I could have done all the things for them, more so for them, even more than I did. And I already was a present and loving and doting dad, and just repositioned the things that I was doing on those weekends instead of certain things for them. And I'm not trying to come across like on the weekends when I had them that it was just all about me and they're sitting on the couch watching CoComelon, right? Miss those days, but no more CoComelon. But what I'm trying to tell you is more so, which if you can have any takeaways, some of the things I was doing on the weekend, I could have repositioned either early in the morning or I could have positioned them during the week. So I used to be, especially with work, a night owl. I would stay up late. I would ultimately just work and work and work, sleep a little later in the morning. And that was just what I was doing for work as a business owner and entrepreneur. So it turns out I kind of flipped the script. So my big takeaway was I'm going to go to bed earlier. I'm going to wake up really early. And by the time my kids really get up for the day, I would have done the exact thing that I would have done when they were awake, but I was limiting the things that I was doing with them. So by going to bed when they go to bed, because my kids were going to bed at the time like 8, 9 o'clock, I was going to bed 12, 1-ish. I'm sure there are plenty of dads out there that do the same, like, oh, it's nighttime, it's my time, I'm alone. I finally get my, time to work or time to relax. So I wasn't doing that. I was putting them both down with our nighttime routine. I was going to bed right after, forcing myself. Then I started getting up between 4 and 5 a.m. even on the weekends, and I started doing all the things for work in my home office that I was going to do later in the day. So it was almost like double dipping. I was able to spend all the quality time with my kids at night. 'Cause to me, a great morning routine and weekend starts with your night routine. I was able to spend all the quality time with them at night, put them to bed, have our great night routine, go right to bed, wake up at 4 or 5 a.m., have my coffee, and go right to work. Grind for 2, 3-ish, maybe even 4 hours before my kids got up. So number one, I was most efficient anyway when I first wake up. And number two, when my kids were awake for the full days on the weekend, as an example, when I had them, I wasn't limiting the things they were doing. It was all about them. I was loving on them, whatever the sports were, soccer at the time or little gym when they were super little, whatever it was. But I waited a little long, not too long, a little long to actually do that. If any of this resonates with you guys, if you're an entrepreneur or business owner and you're struggling on the weekends because that's when your grind time is, I would almost challenge you, just like I challenge myself, go to bed early, wake up early, and then use that morning slot before the sun even comes up for all your work time, because then you'll be able to get it all done, right? You'll start with your work day, you'll lean into being a dad the rest of the day, and by night, all's gonna be accomplished. Now looking back, the fourth mistake, the fourth one is to me the most important, and it was told to me a little late in the game. It was told to me by my grandfather, Poppy, and it was amazing advice, but I realized I was definitely making this mistake. Was he told me, Andrew, time, as you're a parent of your kids, time will move faster, faster. He said, time moves faster, faster. So you have to take advantage of the moments. And I've always had a great relationship with my grandfather. Right now, it's either dementia, Alzheimer's, and the relationship is kind of pressed pause, and he's kind of just doing his thing, unfortunately. But he gave me so many nuggets of wisdom throughout my teens and then eventually becoming a father. Now that one was told to me a little bit late. I wish I was told, whether it's on a YouTube video like this or just in general a little bit earlier. But I realized there were so many amazing moments with my kids. For me, I was like a super hog. I talk about caretaking and offloading that. The night routine, I took that. That was mine. I love it. Little girls, putting them to bed, just, being there for them as their protector, especially when initially girls are typically daddy's girls through and through. It was the best time. And I remember my older daughter, Daniela, we would read the Moocorn book, right? Unicorn, the Moocorn book. And it was always Sparkle, the pink Moocorn. She couldn't say unicorn yet. And I remember I just rolled out a mortgage company, had all this stress. I think COVID was about, rearing its ugly head, unfortunately. And when I put her to bed, and we read the book, and I always felt her. I was on the right, she was on the left, and I felt her falling asleep because I heard her deep breathing. Like, it was the best. It was just the greatest feeling in the world, having my little girl there. But there were many times that I don't know if I was there mentally. I was present physically, but I don't know if I was present really emotionally. Maybe I was tired from business development or networking or whatever it was, but I always made it home for the night routine. But I wish I would have won those nights and done a better job, not just being there physically, being more attentive. Because I always knew in my head, oh, my daughter's the best. I'll put her to bed now, whatever. I'll go back to downstairs and go back to work. And, tomorrow we'll have the same routine. But eventually, here I am, she's turning 10. And lucky enough, we still have a night routine. It's obviously nothing like it was 7 years ago, but it just really resonates to me, the mistake I made of just really not taking advantage of the moments. And I lived in the moments. We've had great moments. Every time we have a great moment with my kids, I always want it to stay forever. And then it's the next thing, right? It's like K-pop, then it's cat's eye. But to me, if I give you any advice here about the mistakes I made, this is the one I definitely want you to take away, is enjoy the moments, because they don't go away instantly. It's just, you will eventually, that 2 or 3-year-old that loves when you sit and read her the book, she'll be turning 10. And I hear from all the guys in the world, right? Like, oh, I was so close to my daughter, and eventually now I just drop her off at the mall and she thinks I'm cringy. And I'm like, that'll never happen. I'm seeing it. Now, it's not happening yet. I will do everything in my power to maintain the best relationship with my daughters, because they're super cool and we're just very close and we communicate great, which we put in a lot of work. But I will tell you, if anything here resonates, just make sure that you put in the time when you have it, as Poppy said, and it's 100% true. As you get older as a parent with your kids, time moves faster, faster, and those amazing moments, they start turning even faster, and you would do anything to go back and just relive it one more time. All right, guys, so those are the 4 mistakes looking back that I wish someone would have told me about, to kind of course correct, at least prepare myself, so I wouldn't have made those mistakes and would have taken advantage of the time with my kids or the things that we just went over. But make sure you watch our next video where we talk about advice for soon-to-be dads. Whether you're a soon-to-be dad or soon-to-be stepdad, make sure you watch our next video so you're prepared with all the advice that you could ever need.